Hello, and welcome to Lore Watch, a roundtable freeform discussion about lore and your favorite media. I'm your host, Joe Perez, one of several lore-focused folks from Blizzard Watch, and I've got my stalwart companion with me today, Matt Rossi. How you doing today, Matt?
I am one of the other lore-focused people from Blizzard Watch.
Well, friends, today we're going to be answering questions from you, our wonderful listeners. And again, we appreciate those questions when they come in. Just to remind you, if you want to send those in, you can hit us up at podcast@blizzardwatch.com. Send us an email. In the subject line, tell us what show it's for. We do have 3 of them at this point. And as well as any special pronunciation of your name inside the body of that email message. If Discord is more your thing, we do have 2 channels set aside for it. We have the Q and podcast questions channel, which is open up for everybody. You can go ahead and just do the thing there. Same rules apply, what show it's for, and the special pronunciation of your name. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you actually have access to the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel. We tend to look there first as a way of saying thank you for helping us keep the lights on. And as a matter of fact, some of these questions come directly from there. So without further ado, let's get started with Mused Moose, who I'm glad that the moose is mused. I'm assuming it is amused. Is there any known afterlife in Sanctuary? Asking because the antagonist of the current season apparently went to the Hells when he died and became a powerful demon. But I don't get the impression that most people head to either the Hells or the Heavens when they die, because we've been both places and they're pretty light on people. So was this something he had to do on purpose? Do we know what happens to most denizens of Sanctuary when they die? I mean, there's a lot of complicated answers, and I'm going to let Matt go because it's a Diablo question, and I feel like whenever there's a Diablo question, I kind of just shake Matt and let him go. So, shake, shake, shake.
Unfortunately, he put Mentos in me this week, so it's going to be horrible, guys. Run away. I answered a similar question on the queue. Basically, the default status for Sanctuary in terms of Afterlife seems to be tried to find the World Stone. Because we see in Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, the one that's all about death, that the souls of people from Sanctuary, if not blocked, seem to go to Pandemonium, to where the World Stone used to be. Although it's questionable as to whether or not that's where they all went, but that seemed to be one of the destinations you could go. However, we did see 2 things that kind of play around with that. One of them is that we know that people can make pacts with both heaven and hell. And when they make those pacts between Diablo Immortal, Diablo 3, and Diablo 4, we know this. When they make those pacts, their souls then end up going essentially to power either the heavens or the hells. But the thing is, the heavens almost never do this. There's like one involving the Sightless Eye and the cult that was built around it. There's one group that kind of made a deal. Actually, I guess 2 now, because Diablo 4, you've got Inarius making deals, but Inarius is lying. Like when Inarius says that the cathedral there are going to get to go to heaven with him, he's lying. They're not going with him. He does not care about them. They are tools, and he has no intention of keeping his word.
He also doesn't have the ability to make good on that promise either, because at the time that we deal with him, he's not in good with heaven.
No, but the whole point is that he made a promise that he knew he couldn't keep, and still had no intention of keeping, so it didn't bother him that he was lying through. And Arius is not a good person. But that's the case for Inarius. But we do know that some human souls have been taken to the hells and become demons because of deals they made, and that's the entire bedrock of the Dark Exile. The reason that the 3 great evils that Diablo, I want to say Mephisto, thank you, Brain, you actually said it, Mephisto and Baal, the reason the 3 of them got exiled to Sanctuary was their own idea. They manipulated the 4 lesser evils to exile them because they wanted to get around the deal that Heaven and Hell had made, that neither of them would interfere with Sanctuary, because Sanctuary was this entire source of soul power. They could get their hands on these souls. And remember, every human on Sanctuary is descended from an angel and a demon. So when they die, their souls are extremely powerful currency, and the hells want them. but they have to make deals to get them. They can't just go and kill a bunch of people and grab their souls and take it to hell. Those souls won't go there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Diablo 4, specifically Vessel of Hatred, we also get a new complication, which is tied into something that Joe and I talked about for a while, in that it seems like Sanctuary is somehow got its own idea of what should be there when you die, that it may have created before the destruction of the World Stone, or it may have created it after, but we see hints and pieces about it. In the main game, we see it when you go to Swamp Place, where's the name I can't remember. Sorry, but you see it with the witches and the tree and all that stuff. They've got their own thing, and they even say at one point, well, the swamp is in Sanctuary, and the witches respond, is it? Is it really? And you get the sense like, wait a minute, they know something. When you go to Diablo 4, and you head down to where Travancore and Karast were/are, because the cities are still kind of there. You find out about the spirit world. That's the whole aspect of that thing about the spirit world, and we find out that there is a spirit world entity that is calling itself Akarat.
Mm-hmm.
And Akarat was a human who died, but we don't know if the Akarat we meet is the same being. And they make a point of it. They talk about how it doesn't know if it's the real Akarat soul having gone through a period of regeneration in the spirit world, or if it's the creation of all the people who believed in Akarat and what they believed about him. Go ahead,
that's the weird complication that we have with that Diablo 4 is kind of thrown into the works, right? And we don't know. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So we know now that the belief of whatever is next, or at least human belief, has the power to create in Sanctuary, and it makes a certain amount of sense since they're descendants of Nephilim, essentially. That they have a certain amount of power to shape the world around them. The thing we don't know is, or at least I question, is if the Soul Stone was just overriding that, and that they always had the ability to sort of create their own existences. And for as long as Sanctuary has been around, and as long as the Nephilim have existed, and as long as humans have existed, has there been different flavors of the afterlife? The answer seems to be yes. And the answer seems...
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, because, look at, Tian Sa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they have all their different gods, and those gods certainly seem to have massive amounts of power and can affect the afterlife for their own people.
Yeah, and the interesting thing for me is everything you think can be possible is actually possible. It's an infinite possibility as far as the afterlives are concerned. And we're just now sort of rediscovering or discovering this. And like what we've had with I cannot remember the spirit callers, and what they've taught us with that, what we've learned from the swamps and the witches, and what we've learned from essentially our interactions with heaven and hell, or the hells, is that it's infinitely possible to pretty much go anywhere. And going back to the root of the question, heaven and hell is, like Matt said, it's you go there if you've made a deal or something alters you in such a way, right? Like with the demons, we don't know if somebody is possessed of a demon. Let's say, why can't I remember his name's the one ex Haradrim's son that was the in Diablo 4.
Oh right, yeah, I know who exactly. Yeah, horrible thing, gets the thing stuck in his forehead.
Yeah, and we have to basically put him down, but like we don't know what happens to souls like that, right? Is that soul consumed? Is that soul completely irrevocably altered to become a demon against its will, not something, or is that something that happens because the soul of the person that is currently inside of the meat suit that the demon's riding around in believes that that's what's going to happen, and therefore that is what happens. And
yeah, it's Norin, by the way.
Thank you. So it's I don't know that we're ever going to know a concrete answer, because I don't know that there can be a concrete answer, right? I think it's very mercurial.
Like Diablo 3 has an exactly same situation, but even worse. Leah, who we know is a good person who wanted to help her uncle, because she was sired by Diablo in the body of her mortal father, Aiden, became Diablo. Like Diablo took over her body. What happened to Leah's soul? We do not know. We have never found out. So there's a like would it make it doesn't seem cosmologically fair that Leah would go to the hells because she didn't ask to go there. She didn't make a deal. But like, what else could have happened? Was she consumed? Can they consume souls? Because we've never heard that they can.
Yeah, and I mean the other side of that too is like, do we know any beings that have made it to the heavens besides angels or redeemed demons potentially? 'Cause we know that angels can
One
fall.
Nephilim did it.
And which Nephilim was it?
Us in Diablo 3.
But we weren't
We
dead.
went to the heavens. No, we weren't dead, but we did go to the heavens. Can we go to the heavens dead? That's another. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how much of that has to do with the crystal arch being damaged too, right? Like, was the crystal arch something that kept humans out or kept the human spirits out? Was it, did it convert them into angels potentially?
I mean,
Um,
yeah, I was actually wondering maybe it did maybe it kept them out, or maybe it was actually like a giant, fly zapper. Their souls, if it went near them, would just take them and boom, new angel stuff. We don't know. We know that the souls were going to the Pandemonium, which again, remember that Pandemonium is the oldest place in creation
mhm.
because it is the remains of the battlefield between Tathamet and the Crystal Warrior Anu. And the reason the World Stone was there is because it was his eye that was left on the battlefield. The Crystal Arch is his spine.
Yeah.
So that's a possible correlation between those two things. But we don't know. But we do know that the spirit world is something. It's real. It's there. We can go to it. We can talk to spirits there. But what are those spirits? Like, are they former human souls? Are they entities that are like embodiments of concepts and ideas? Did humans make the spirit world? Just like the world stone was suppressing, because there's the other thing that you just kind of made me think of. The world stone was suppressing the Nephilim down into humans, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was at one point it was programmed to do that, right? We know
What
that.
was it doing with all the Nephilimness of them? Because all that power, what was happening with it? Was it just suppressing it like kryptonite, around a Kryptonian, or was it taking it and doing something with it? Or was that energy being forced out into the world? Did that create the spirit world? Is the spirit world the natural reaction to creating a world? Is it the only reason that this world stayed stable? There's so much we don't understand about any of this stuff. So there's like a lot of potential afterlives, but we can't come up and say how many of them are concretely proved in the game. Well, yeah, the heavens and the hells exist, but are they afterlives? The only reason anybody goes to hell is if somebody
Yeah,
makes a deal and gets forced there.
yeah, and I think that's another aspect of it too, right? Are the heaven and hells actually an afterlife because things live there, and it's not necessarily a place where things go when they die. It is just planes of existence. And before sanctuary existed, they existed, right? So like,
Hmm.
are they actually an afterlife, or are they just another aspect, a seer that overlaps with sanctuary? So maybe that's the real truth of it. Maybe we take the heavens and the hells out of the question of the afterlife and look more at everything else. And I think
And
maybe
yeah.
that's closer to the truth.
Well, plus, I mean, think about it this way: the weirdest thing about this whole thing is that the heavens are basically grown around this big chunk of Anu, right? The crystal arch,
Yep,
the
yep,
the
yep.
spine of the diamond warrior. The hells are what happens when the rotten body of Tathamet crashes into a plane of existence that forms around it.
Hmm.
It's like existence pockets it away so it can't just be everywhere destroying everything. And all the demons there are like stuff growing out of the corpse. Like bits and pieces of Tathamet's essence form all these things. And that's why the primes, the greater and lessers, are so powerful, is because they're like literally the heads of Tathamet in a reincarnated form. And that's just weird to think about. Like, in a way, hell is the afterlife for demons.
But I mean, is it really the afterlife for demons, or is it just
I mean,
the realm of demons, right?
it's the
Because like,
afterlife for Tathamet because it's literally where Tathamet went to be essentially broken down. But it's at the same time, it's only the afterlife in that it is after their life. It's not a place where the soul goes so much as the soul is like
yeah, see,
stuff, right?
that's the part that I'm having trouble reconciling, because even then, the heavens and the hells are just parts of a being, essentially,
Yeah. And
right? Like that being
that means
existed.
humans, yeah. And that means that humans and their souls are the only thing that has both of those together anymore, right? Because the heavens are all just, stuff from Crystal Warrior
Well,
Anu.
now you
The
got me
hells
asking
are all just
another,
stuff from Baphomet.
but now you got me asking another question then. So we know that Nephilim are the combination of like the souls of heaven and the hells, essentially.
Hmm.
They are little tiny versions of the perfect diamond warrior Anu, essentially, right? Um,
Well, actually, I'd say that the one before the Perfect Diamond Warrior, they're like the ones where he was
Anu
Baphomet
United.
and Anu.
We'll
Yeah.
say Anu United. All right. I think
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think that's close enough. So
It's
they're
a DBZ fusion.
so they're the essentially these little tiny manifestations of the unified perfect one, of the unified one. But with demons and angels essentially being able to be redeemed and transfer between the two, can they also technically get to a state that is similar?
I mean, that's the thing to think about. We know that angels can fall.
And we know that
I
demons
don't
can
think
be redeemed, we think.
we think, but we don't. We've
We
not
haven't
seen it. We can't prove it, but it does make sense. If one can happen, the other should be able to happen.
well, we have an inkling
Um.
of it because of the mercenaries stuff in D4 with the kid.
Hmm.
Right? Like we have an
Yeah,
inkling of it. It hasn't been confirmed, but like a
but
lot of the
there's
stuff you do with him is sort of leading you down that path.
well. Plus, I mean, this is something that's going to sound like we're really stepping off on a ledge here. But one of the things I started thinking about when Diablo 4 first came out, story wise, is that a lot of the things that Rakis kept talking about, all this prophecies and so forth, were given to him by a great serpent. And
Yeah.
that great serpent, in my mind, has to be Tragul.
Oh, I mean,
Because
it
that's who we
has to be.
saw that's who we saw in the novels. That's who we saw helping start the whole necromancer order, which he was kind of the grandpa of. And it was always like it's neither of heaven or hell. It's
It's the
always this
balance.
outside balancing force.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. I keep feeling like that ties into this because why is that where necromancy comes from? Why is death the great balancer? I
Well,
mean,
so interestingly enough, I
go
think
ahead, go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk. So go ahead.
so interestingly enough, you bring that up, and what I'm immediately struck by is that Tragul seems to be an ancient force that, like we've talked about, is a balance between the two. But what is the other function of it? It's to keep sanctuary free as much as it can from the influence of the high heavens and the burning hells. That sounds a whole hell of a lot like the essentially manifestation of sanctuary. So necromancy kind of makes sense, at least a little bit here, being in that regard, because what is necromancy doing? It's keeping things in sanctuary. And that is essentially keeping things out of sanctuary by essentially raising an army. Things that can't be corrupted, things that can't be influenced by the high heavens or the burning hells. An undead doesn't care if Asmodeus wants to make a deal with it. An undead doesn't necessarily have hate in its heart because it doesn't have a heart to have hate in. There may be aspects or manifestations that like have a certain lean to them. They maybe have a certain purpose, but almost never is it something that we could see like Mephiston influencing, right? Or an undead isn't going to take a deal from an Arius. And in a way, it's almost like the perfect extension of a Nephilim's power because it can't be affected by either and becomes a perfect soldier to keep those influences at bay. So
Well, and that kind of ties into the fact that when we first hear of Tragul, one of the things they say is that Tragul entered the world at the moment of its creation.
yeah, like I'm almost considering that Tragul is a manifestation of sanctuary.
I find myself wondering if Tragul
Is
is
sanctuary.
sanctuary.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Like,
Like the
no, I know
consciousness
what
of
you
it.
mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's soul.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if the world stone created a world and none of the other worlds worked, they all came apart. The world stone may have been like, okay, I couldn't make a soul before because I only had access to one or the other. Either it would be an angel using the stone, or it would be a demon using the stone. The only time it worked was when an angel and a demon together used the stone and created sanctuary.
Hmm.
And that means, does a soul, like a thing that can go to an afterlife, a thing that can die and yet continue through death, can those things only be souls if they have both elements to
You
them?
know what? And I'm wondering if this ties into the other earlier thing where the heavens and the hells are not afterlives. And maybe
Yeah.
this feeds into it because they are outside planes. And if Tragul is trying to keep the heavens and hells away from, influencing sanctuary and the denizens therein, afterlives that are just extensions of sanctuary, which we seem to have some form of confirmation, at least with the spirit realm, that that's what that is. It's a bubble that touches sanctuary, that overlaps it in some capacity. We're able to travel through the spirit realm from point A to point B, which means that there is at least some form of cosmic overlap there, almost like the Shadowlands in World of Warcraft. So that we know exists. We know that the beings there react poorly when angels or demons are brought into the spirit realm. We've seen what happens there and what the influence on that can happen. And even then, when we see the demonic influence on the spirit realm, it's almost sectioned off, and it's the part that touches sanctuary the most. And then
It feels like they've almost corrupted it to the point where it's dragged towards sanctuary.
yes, like it's being brought in. And this coincides with why can I not remember the name of this swamp? And this is going to bother me. I'm sorry, folks. When we talk
Yeah,
to
I know.
when we talk to
I
the
have
witch,
the
I
same
could
problem. Hawazar.
Harazar. Yes, when we talk to the witches of Hawazar, we get the same sort of vibe. Yes, corruption can go there, but what are they doing? They're trying to keep it at bay. They're trying to keep it out. They're trying to remove that influence. The whole storyline with the gigantic serpent that we deal with. What is it teaching us the entire bloody time? Then we can talk to the tree of the headless
Yeah,
mercenaries.
it's all the heads. The
Yeah,
tree of, yeah. I want to say the tree of shadows, but I don't remember if that's what it's called.
but like
Ah,
even that is its own thing. Like that area around it is, while it's attached to sanctuary, it's not sanctuary, right? Like we have all of these little pocket dimensions, and why haven't the demons attacked there? Why haven't the angels attacked there? They can't probably. So, and
Tree of Whispers.
Tree of Whispers, thank you. And it
I'm
seems
looking
like
stuff up.
but it seems like all of these things are intentionally built to contain sanctuary and pieces of sanctuary.
I
Even the
got something
idea
else
of the
for you.
afterlife, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. When Tragul first learned about Anarius and Lilith, he was going to go after them directly,
Yeah, he's gonna go beat them up.
and he was stopped by guardians of other worlds. And we've always thought that meant other worldstone creations, but what if heaven and hell have their own souls, their own divided, fractured, but reality protecting beings who are like, you can't do that. You have to keep us in balance.
Yeah,
And that's
so
why
I'm
Tragul
reminded.
couldn't do it, because Tragul was told by the guardians of other worlds that he couldn't directly
Yeah,
act because he risked causing a cataclysm.
I was actually just gonna bring that up. So, like, it's the whole idea in the Sin War, right? Where Tragul
Hmm.
tutored Mendel, excuse me, because he believed that war on sanctuary could devour all of existence if it was left unchecked. And then, like you said, learning between the pact between Inarius and Diablo, he wanted to intervene directly, but was stopped by his fellow guardians that kept guard over worlds of their own. They warned
Yeah,
him
and
that
it never
interference would risk all creation.
it
Fortunately,
never
the Sin War
says what
ended in
those
sanctuary,
worlds were.
or who those
And
guardians were.
yeah, and it's possible that this whole thing is kept, like, it's oftentimes we talk about balance, we think of it like a teeter totter. We think of it
Oh,
as like, you've got a beam or something that moves up and down. But look at a suspension bridge is all about balance.
what you know? You just made me remember something. Sanctuary is the only world created with the world soul that's stuck.
Yeah, the only one that
But
the
it's
World Stone could create and kept going. That's why I said the whole thing about the two working together thing. But yeah, go ahead.
but it's not the only world that was created with the world stone.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely, it was not.
And what if the spirit realm, the all these other realms, these afterlives, these other pocket worlds or dimensions are sustained because Sanctuary exists, and they were created in the after pieces of those worlds.
See, we talked about this before, and I actually am going to use the Joe of the past to respond to you, because Joe in the past made the point: what if they're not even in existence? What if when Sanctuary was created, it pulled all the previous potentials into itself? And
Like
places like the
the
spirit
little
world,
fragments, like a tree reaching out, like the roots, right?
like, or like, think about, I can't believe I'm making this reference, but think about the original Secret Wars story, where the Beyonder created Battle World out of little pieces of every world in the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't just make a world. What if the World Stone reached out and grabbed all its previous creations and used them here? Like, it could be that not even necessarily a deliberate thing, but the existence of Sanctuary provides a real sustainable world that then essentially everything is attracted to it. It's like, this thing is real and it's none of these other things. Now all these other little bits and pieces of other realities that the World Stone created. Because keep in mind, this is the last time the World Stone was created.
Yeah, the world stone is not
It was
existent
used.
anymore. Like
Yeah,
it does, but it doesn't.
it was made. It made Sanctuary. It made itself inside Sanctuary, and then it was destroyed. And it could be recreating itself right now, for all we know. But it was the last time anyone used it. So,
Well, not
until
necessarily
someone
use
else,
it. It was the last time somebody used it to create.
it was the last time that the last time that the World Stone was used to do anything aside from curse the Nephilim, and that was very much a use by one person. That was an Inarius use.
We can't forget the
He,
Angel of Death trying to use it as well.
yeah, but he never even got to it though. He was using chunks of it, and that's the other weird part is that the pieces of the World Stone still have power and can still create things. But anyway, what we're going around and around on here is that we don't know if any of these things are afterlives, other than the only one that seems even remotely a candidate is the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the spirit world is we don't know if it's where you go when you die or if it's where your life changes things. Like where if you decide, oh, hey, I got burned really bad in this fire, fire must hate me and be evil. Then we get evil fire spirits. Whereas another guy's like, wow, this fire really helped me cook this meat and I'm not going to die from starvation. I love you, fire. There's a good fire spirit. And those two spirits, they might interact, and are they all just created by people? Or are some things in there that influence people and then make those people do things? Like the Spiritborn are just one of many groups that deal with the spirit world. And it's what was it? We were talking about how so much of the stuff that we find in Diablo looks organic.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about could that be like is there an afterlife to Sanctuary that is like a growth? I don't know. I don't. We don't really know. We do know that people get hijacked into heaven and hell, or at least into hell. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's an afterlife for them. It just means that someone's stealing them into it so they can use them for themselves. And that's what pacts and so forth are. The reason demons are willing to give people power in life is that when they die, they get it all back. And then some. They get another piece of the army they want to build so they can finally destroy heaven. So it's not necessarily an afterlife so much as it is a prison.
Yeah, there's so much here.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I still think you're onto something with the concept of the previous creations might be kind of interwoven into Sanctuary, or even just remnants of into Sanctuary.
yeah, like I can't shake it, right? Like I can't shake how similar, like just going off the spirit realm and how similar the denizens of the spirit realm are to us as
Mhm.
players in the game, right? Like it's not that they're just animalistic. It's not that just that they're these big bundles of like weirdly shapen creations. They're very human in or Nephilim or whatever in their emotions and how they interact. It's why they can deal with the Nephilim and the humans in general, right? Like they have that there's almost like a kinship there. I don't know. I'm hoping we find out more as more stuff is released because I'd love to see this sort of expanded upon. But this might be a tinfoil hat episode for another future episode where we revisit this and go deep, deep, deep into wild territory. But I think for now we're going to move on and try to get at least another question in. This one comes from Verdigris, who is a frequent flyer here. Dear observers of Occluded Obscura, what do you think the Warcraft universe's stars and suns even are? Druids, mages, priests, warlocks, Arakoa, constellars, Elune, titans, night fae, light, void, etc., etc. Many beings appear to wield versions of stellar and solar energies, even their gravity. We have Sarkareth and miscellaneous void people burning us in the light of dying stars and black hole effects, mage supernovae, starfires, sunfires, Illidan and Rygalon casting collapsing star. We have astromancers all over the place, Nightborn, Shadow Moon, Blood Elves, and a number of observatories. If the various forces of the cosmos manifest in planets to play capture the flag, perhaps the same is true of yet grander celestial bodies. The Kaldori might be their figurative children, but what do we actually know of the stars themselves? Precious little, right?
I was going to just say nothing, like the guy from UHF, but you know.
We know a little bit, right? And we know our understanding of it, our worldview has sort of expanded, especially over the last few expansions when it comes to the universe at large. Originally, when Warcraft first spun into existence, the blind eternity is essentially out there. Sorry, that's magic. The twisting nether was this vast, expansive blackness between stars. It really wasn't a thought. We knew of two planets, and that was it. We knew of Draenor, or at the time Outland, and then we knew of Azeroth. We didn't know anything else existed, right? There was no talks of other planets that we could see inside of our own solar system. There was discussion of the moons of Azeroth, the twin moons, but really that's about it. Then we learned about Koresh. Then we learned about other planets that existed as we started moving our way through Legion and getting through portals and different various places. We learned that traveling through space and time and dimensions was actually possible without the dragons, because you know the Draenei had the option, or the Eridar essentially had the ability to do this before they were, you know, turned into an evil force of the Legion. We don't know how many solar systems are out there in the universe. We don't know how many stars that exist or what those stars even are. We can make the guess that there are multiple solar systems out there because of what we saw in Shadowlands, when we were in the Sepulchre, when we were in Zereth Mortis. We learned that the first ones were experimenting. We don't know if they created everything in the cosmos, but there's a good chance that they manipulated it. And it would be folly to think that we were the only experiment, right? We even know that there was a former night warrior in Ardenweld from a different planet that had old god problems that very clearly exists or existed, but we've never seen it. So all of the stars we see could be celestial suns. They could be bodies, heavenly bodies that refract light. They could be Naru cores. They could be any number of things. In terms of the power that we wield based off of them, that is a very good question. We know that gravity exists. We know that void exists. We know that light exists. But when you're talking about star and summoning the moon and starfall and starlight, especially things like, I mean, just looking at Boomkin in general, they've never really explained where that power of star comes from. And I don't think I've missed anything on that as far as the game goes. Matt, can you think of anything that has ever explained that?
I mean, we know that some things that they're called stars aren't, like the destroyer star that used to orbit Draenor wasn't a star at all. It was a chunk of it was basically a corrupted Naru, and it would affect people on the planet as it came closer and moved further away. But that wasn't it was a dead Naru, or not dead. It was a Naru going into its dark cycle. It was one of the ones from the ships that the Naru were originally using to escape. During the crash landing on Draenor, this one got ejected and it ended up, going into its dark cycle, and thus it's an omen of ill repute. It's not a real star. There are other things like that on Azeroth. I mean, not on Azeroth, throughout the cosmos, or other things like that. Not just Azeroth. There's also beings like the Constellar. The Constellars seem to be made of stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at them, they look like they're made of stars. And we know that the Constellars aren't Titan, and they weren't necessarily Titan creations. We know sometimes that the Constellars seem to not have been so much created by the Titans as they were called by the Titans from somewhere. We don't know where they're called from. Do the Titans reach out to the stars and say, "Hey, send me a Constellar"? Like, where is that? What is the deal with Constellars? We don't know exactly. We don't know what their creation myth is, or even their history. We don't know much about them. We know that one of the Constellars, became a servant of Helya, which would kind of imply that, yes, they were summoned by the Titans, because Helya learned a lot of Titan summoning magic and used it to create her own plane of existence. She used it to banish Odin's, the Hall of Valor. Like, that was Helya using that kind of same reality creating power. Is it related to the stars? I don't know. But we know that Titan summoning power, it can reach into the Great Dark Beyond. It can reach into the Twisting Nether, which are not the same thing, but they are kind of like cousins.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Dark Beyond is now canonically the place between stars, where the Twisting Nether is now canonically the place between places, place between existence. It's in its own reality now. So they've done a lot of stuff over the years that kind of tinker with it in terms of the lore of the story of the setting, and I feel like that's given us led us into a place where we don't actually know specifically what. Like, there's multiple Constellar. There's like, Rygalon, who was drawn to observe the events in the what do you call it, the Sepulchre of the First Ones, and then he got dominated by the Jailer. Why was Rygalon called there? Who called Rygalon there?
Mm-hmm.
What is it, Rygalon or Rygalon?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I don't remember how it's pronounced, but regardless, the Constellars seem to be like they are not Titans or Titan creations, but they are part and parcel of the universe. It's almost like they're part of the First One's plan for the place, because they keep observing things. Why are they drawn to observe things? Why do they keep showing up to observe things? Why did a whole bunch of Constellars show up during the Argus fight? The whole deal where
Oh yeah,
Argus
there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. Why are they there? Why do they show up? Why do they, decide to fight us? Like, hey, like, are they trying to stop something from happening? Are they trying to stop us from killing Argus because Titans aren't supposed to be killable? They don't want us to send his essence into the Shadowlands? Are they a defense system for existence? Is that what stars are? Are stars there to make existence possible for some reason? We don't know, but it does seem at least feasible. We know that some stars are enormous cosmic forces, like our star, like the sun or other stars in our universe. There are some things in this cosmos that are enormous, and planets orbit them. But that doesn't mean that those things aren't alive. We have. It could very well be that those things have gigantic souls living in them, or that the Constellars are the life of stars. Like, they might be. We don't know, but we know that whatever the Constellars are, they're definitely tied into the stars. What with all the black holing and star blasting that they're doing, and they almost always seem to show up to observe things, which I think is kind of weird. I mean, didn't Agramar sense that Sargeras killed a Constellar?
Yes.
Like, there was a world out there somewhere, I don't remember exactly where, but the first time that Sargeras went to a world with the Legion, he killed the Constellar. And Agrimar sensed it. Like, what the heck? Why would somebody kill a Constellar? So he didn't even like go to it and go try to confront Sargeras. Yeah, he did. That's what he did.
Hmm.
So we don't know enough to know for sure, but we do know that some stars seem to be much smaller and not necessarily what we would think of in this world when we talk something a star, but other things absolutely seem to be, and it's entirely possible that the constellars live in or come from stars. They're like star patterns in miniature.
Yeah. Uh, it's a very interesting question that you ask here, Verd. One that I unfortunately anything we give you beyond what we've already said is just going to be rampant speculation because there really isn't a whole lot to go on because they haven't really talked about it.
Yeah, they only think like the Calderai thing. Yeah, they're called the children of the stars, but
That's
in
just
what way?
yeah, and that's just because we call them stars and they exist at night, right? Like, um, it's but there are a lot of things that seem to call on the moon. Like one thing that seems to spring to mind is Shadow Moon Valley, right? Like even them, like there's a lot of lunar body calling in their shamanism. There's a lot of dealing with the stars and light and the movement of night. Um, you go through like the original, like go back and do the dungeons from Warlords of Draenor when you do the Shadow Moon one, when you go after Ner'zhul, like that's the whole theme. They're communing with the ancestors, but they're doing it within the stars, and they have this belief that all the stars you see, and they don't know about the Shadowlands, are these pinpricks of like these are the light of the ancestors watching over them. Is that valid? Probably not, but we don't know for sure. We can't really say that it's not. They definitely seem to be able to pull their ancestors back to talk with them. We deal with plenty of spirits there. And is that mean that they're pulled back from the Shadowlands, or did they never go to the Shadowlands? Again, more questions we don't know about there.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, there's the whole deal with Elune, who herself seems to be a psychopomp.
yeah,
Like one of Elune's things is to gather souls, and instead of taking them to the Shadowlands, well, she does that too. Sometimes she takes them and puts them up into the sky as constellations again. We keep coming back to the like. It's just a lot of the things we see about stars in the game. What Joe just said about souls coming through the stars. What if every star is like an intrusion point for some other cosmic reality coming forth into our universe? Like there's ones from the Shadowlands, there's ones from whatever the arcane existence is, there's ones from the light, which is why the Sunwell, makes even more sense with the light infused into it. There could be a whole bunch of this stuff. There could be void stars, again, black holes.
yeah, and see the other interesting thing too is like going back to like some other things like Medivh, right? Like one of Medivh's specialties, I think, was astronomy. And so he probably knows more about it than any other being that has existed, except for maybe Khadgar if he happened to read that book. But I do remember that at least in one of the books, and I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. I apologize. Might have been Beyond the Dark Portal. But it was the Jeweled Scepter of Sargeras, which was a staff, the Eye of Dalaran, the Seer, and the Book of Medivh, the Tome, were combined by Ner'zhul. And when they were combined we used with magical energies and released during the big event, it was able to open up dimensional gateways to other worlds as part of what the whole like shattering of Outland was, right? So like
Yeah.
we know that whatever is in that book of Medivh, that tome that has the power of astronomy, there is power there. The other interesting thing we know is that there are actual um, constellations, right? And I remember in Warlords of Draenor there was a seer, and I can't remember the name of the seer now. But we talked about this: the stars shape our destinies. They grant their blessings to the worthy and shun the weak. And the Shadow Moon orcs really believe in this stuff, and they have different. Matt already said the Destroyer Star, which happened to be something completely different, but they also
Are
had
you talking about Kazal?
yes, Kazal. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah,
Like that sounds like Kazal.
because he was the exile, right? There's a whole
Yep.
quest around that, which there's a whole bunch of stuff that were prior to Legion about like the Blazing Star, the Chill Star, the Destroyer Star, the Favorite Star, like all of these quests were teaching you about their view of astrology and how these constellations and stars they believed granted them power, and how the alignments of the stars influence things. The other thing is, like Matt pointed out, these could be intrusion points of other cosmic energies entering the universe of that we exist in with Azeroth. And we know that we use Zereth Mortis, for example. Zereth Mortis exists as an engine that essentially links directly to Azeroth, right? What if there are other engines like that, which Matt has speculated many, many times, and I think he's right about, that reach to other worlds? And what if those are all of those energies essentially being focused back in, which is why those stars have power? And instead of, the fact that you worship a star is what gives you the power, or worshiping that particular, constellation, it's literally you just tapping into that primal energy that is creating that effect, right? Like, one of the things that I think is interesting about Warcraft and true about humans in general is throughout history in the real world, we have ascribed myth to what we don't understand yet, right? And I believe Matt mentioned this a few episodes ago, and we talk about it often, the concept that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. It's the same thing with the power here, right? It could be something that was set in motion eons ago. It could be something that the first one set in place. These could be power points that are filtering energy into the universe intentionally to keep it going.
You know what you just made me think?
Go for it.
What if it's a circuit diagram?
Yep. That's exactly where I was going, man. I love it. I love it. Go for it.
But just that whole idea that, like, if you looking at the stars can teach it grant you power, but the power usually just means that you understand what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're usually used to essentially read the future. And the thing is
And
that if the first ones created the stars to be part of a system to create the universe and keep it running, then by looking at the circuit diagram, you could understand, okay, the power is going to do this because that's what it was made to do.
and what
And maybe
happens? Well, let's take it a step further. What happens every single time the stars are pulled out of alignment, or that something happens to work against their natural flow and order? Catastrophe. Every single time. And it doesn't matter
which
what
would make
world you're on.
sense because you've got you're essentially not following the plan. You just broke the connection. The circuit isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing anymore. Of course, it's a disaster. You just shut down half the system. It's like when your friend very helpfully monkeys around inside your computer, and the next thing you know, you have to call tech support, and they're like, "Okay, you didn't unplug it, right? Oh, well, yeah, actually, we did. Oh." Like it could be that. It could be the fact that, it could be multiple things, but it could be both of those things. It could be you tapping into the power of the stars, but it could also be which you understand by reading them. And by reading them, you look at the way the pathway is supposed to go. This is how everything is supposed to work if you can just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of potential for this, but we don't really know. We do know that alignment of the stars can cause issues, and that in of itself suggests that the stars are supposed to align in very specific ways. And when you prevent them from aligning in those ways, everything, it's like throwing a wrench into like a jet engine. The thing is going to be a problem.
And I was like, to take it a step further and kind of like tap on that in-game mechanics that I think support that, and stay with me here. Let's look at balance druids, right? What was one of their key abilities? I don't know if it still is. I haven't played in a while, but I know that it was added back in Legion. Was
Moonfire and Wrath?
No, celestial alignment. So
Right, that one.
it was a talent that literally the flavor text on it was the celestial bodies align, maintaining both eclipses and granting you a benefit. In this case, 10% haste, but only for 15 seconds, and it was a 3-minute cooldown. It was a big cooldown for a big benefit. And it's sort of all of the cooldowns, all of the abilities that are major cooldowns in a Boomkin's rotation in game are limited effect. And what if that's the reason why? Canonically, they can kind of push things a little bit at a smaller scale, but only for a few moments of time and only to get that extra juice for a little bit, because if they do it for any longer, they throw things out of whack. And I know that seems like a stretch to say that a single druid could possibly throw stars out of alignment, but there's a lot of stars. There's a lot of nodes in that network out there. And we have done some very incredible things, like kill unkillable beings and do some very fantastical stuff that theoretically we shouldn't be able to do. So a druid in boomkin form probably could pull a star out of its natural path for a couple seconds, at least
I mean,
long
yeah,
enough to get what
like
they want, right?
if moving a star by a centimeter would be like an unthinkable amount of power, but it's only a centimeter. You know what I mean? Like you could, it's still, you're altering the alignment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're pulling the star out of the sky and holding it in
And
your hand. It's
yeah,
just, but you did move it.
and
You
even
moved it maybe a micron,
and
but
and then
that's still moving it.
and then as soon as you're done, it snaps back to where it needs to be and continues on
Yeah.
its ever marching forward journey. And to go back
Just
to what
so
you
you also
said,
know, I went and looked it up, and it is still in the game as far as I can tell. It was added in Legion. It seems to still be there. It doesn't say anything about removed.
okay, yeah. So I mean, again, this is just me speculating because I haven't played it in a while, but like, again, all of that seems to be fed through there, and all that seems to make sense. That also seems to align with the stuff that we see in Shadow Moon Valley during Warlords of Draenor. This seems to align with the stuff we know about Medivh and magic and the power of the cosmos. It also seems to align with what we've learned from Zareth Mortis. Like all of the stuff sort of feeds into it, where like maybe not a circuit board, but it is a very apt analogy. But like a power focusing web. Like if the cosmos was ordered very specifically, and we seem to believe it was, that it's sort of like a focusing effect, like a focusing iris, if you and that's why the devourers are so dangerous. Because if they snuff one of those lights out, if they consume one of those nodes, it destabilizes the network. Now, the network may be able to self-correct for a certain amount of time, but if any of you have ever worked in tech, there is this point where when enough nodes or enough machines start to die in a network, you start to get a cascade failure, where that failure then pushes to other pieces to of the system that have to take up more work. And then if another piece burns out, more of that network has to take up more of that work. And
And also, you also can end up with you can't reach other machines.
yes, but it like, and you just start burning the network out at increasingly faster speeds. There was a terrible movie that actually explained it very well. I think it was Travelers with it was Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, where
Yeah,
they're on this.
once an animation one. Yeah.
It wasn't animation; it was a live action where they're
Oh,
colonizers.
suspended animation was the
Suspended
premise of
animation.
the
Yes,
show.
yes. Where the machine, the ship itself is starting to fail, but they don't understand why. Robots are starting to fail, systems are starting to break, the ship is starting to come apart, and they haven't reached their destination yet. But the explanation is this cascade failure. So that's why like the Devourers are so potentially dangerous. Because think about it. If they consume all of the Shadowlands realms, what happens? Part of that system fails. Now you have things going to a black hole, potentially. Then the universe can't sustain itself, and there's this cascade failure. Or if
Yeah,
they,
where is the animal even going if you've lost the Shadowlands?
yep.
Yeah.
Or if they figure out a way to devour the void, as an example. Without the void, what happens to the light? What happens to the rest of the universe? If it consumes the light, what happens to everything else? Like you have these, like all these questions that start to pop up around it when you start to think of everything as this integrated system, going back to Zareth Mortis, going back to Shadowlands, regardless of how you felt about that expansion. That particular content update really sort of put everything into this perspective of there's a very delicate balance to the universe, and we mess with it a lot, like a lot. So maybe that's what the stars are. Maybe that is what those things are. And every time we see something like harnessing the power of gravity or a collapsing star or black hole effects, these are momentary things. They're not maintained for any long period of time. And yes, they're very, very deadly, right? Like collapsing star is a very deadly effect in the Rygalon fight. If you don't deal with it, it kills everybody in the room, but then it dissipates because it has to. Black hole effects, going back to the Astromancer fight, all of the celestial body and things that we deal with there with the gravity, the power, the stars, the burning of the light, all that stuff, all of those effects are temporary because if they're constant, it throws off everything too much. And even then, like we've seen, like it destabilizes the Astromancer when he does it too often. Like there's all these cool little bits, and I'm going to shut up and see if there's anything Matt wants to add to this because yeah,
No,
I'm
I
spiraling
think
a little bit.
I think we're both kind of basically in the same place where we're thinking about this. The only thing I want to mention is that another analogy we might want to consider in terms of the stars in Warcraft is what neurons in a mind. They can't. A human brain cannot regrow its neural paths. If you destroy a bunch of neurons, you can't. Your brain can't just regrow them, but it can reroute. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Like if you have a traumatic brain injury, sometimes your brain will come up with ways around it, and sometimes it won't. And it can, like, there can be things that affect the growth as well. And that's another thing to consider in terms of what we're looking at is, are stars, like, are we getting like stars to try and fix a damaged system? Because it's very clear that the entire system of creation seems to be off kilter. What was it they used to say in Shadowlands? The machinery of death is broken. It feels like the machinery of everything is broken and has been for a while. So that's something to consider as we move forward is, are we going to see more stuff like that? Are we going to understand more? Are we going to go to a star someday and find out that the star is like, not Belemeth, Beladar? Yeah, Beladar. It's like you go to a star, is it like Beladar, but way bigger? You know, we don't know. We don't know if it's a big ball of plasma or if it is like this giant crystal thing that channels power from one reality into another. Don't know, but there's a lot of stuff that we could get to see. I am curious to see it, but right now we don't actually know what the stars are. I really do think there's a bunch of constellars on some of them, though.
Oh, probably. Well, I think that's going to do it for today, friends. I do want to thank you for joining us on this weird journey. We got through 2 whole questions today, and I'm proud of us for doing that. Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to our podcast, a better chance at having your question answered on our podcast, a Q&A, and ads-free site. Again, if you have questions for this or any of our podcasts, be sure to send those in. You can send them into podcast@blizzardwatch.com, singular podcast. Specify the show that it is for in the subject line, as well as any special pronunciation of your name. If you want to hit us up on Discord, we have 2 channels set aside. The Q and Podcast Questions channel is open for everyone, and same rules apply there. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, highly recommend that you make use of that Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel. We look there first as a way of thanking you for keeping our lights on and making sure that we can do all the shows and content that we want to do. And as a reminder, if you can't support us on Patreon, we understand times are tight and the world is a dark place. Share our content on whatever various media you see it on. Leave us comments. Give us likes. It sounds stupid, and I know everybody begs for those, but it does make a huge difference. And if you are on something like Spotify or even YouTube, consider subscribing or following the feeds, even if you don't actively listen there, because those little bits do help. They help give us a little bit of boost with those creators, those content distribution systems, and also help us keep the lights on. So you can help us without even having to do any sort of money donation, which, again, we appreciate. But that, friends, we'll see you next week.
Pumpkins.